Hey everybody, welcome to the Herd Fit Podcast with Dr. Sam Rhee and myself, Coach David Syvertsen. This podcast is aimed at helping anyone and everyone looking to enhance their healthy lifestyle through fitness, nutrition, and most importantly, mindset.
Welcome back to the Herd Fit Podcast with host David Syvertsen and me, Sam Rhee. And today we're talking about a topic that I know you, Dave, had a lot of thoughts about. We've been talking about it a little bit, and it's super relevant right now because of all the things that have been going on, especially in the CrossFit space. So I wanted to ask you, what was it about judging and standards that you really wanted to talk about today?
So we're kind of right in the middle of the biggest part of the competition season. And when I say the biggest part, the peak of the competing season right now is the CrossFit Games, which is in August. But the quarterfinals are now done. Now it goes to the semifinals. There's several of them around the world. The age group is virtual, but this is where people stamp their ticket to the games. And it's just now it gets like serious, right? Not that the quarterfinals aren't, but the numbers are dwindled down big time. And down to basically 1%. I think even less than 1% of the people that started quarterfinals. So the biggest thing is now that the sport has always struggled with this, and we're now in we could probably legitimately say we're in year number 12 or 13 of the sport, which if you look at the history of sport in general, that's still very juvenile, still very early compared to other pro sports, which is what they're trying to make CrossFit. But there's still a very significant issue within the sport that's impacting a lot of people. And there's people in this gym that have impacted that I'll talk about, but it's standards and enforcing the standards. And I want to draw a parallel to baseball. All right, baseball, there are umpires for every single ball, every single pitch that is thrown, it's a ball or a strike. And it's one man's opinion whether or not it's a ball or a strike. And on TV, when you watch a baseball game on TV, there's this virtual box that is put together by a computer, and it'll tell the viewer if it's a ball or a strike. So we know if it was objectively, scientifically a ball or a strike. The ump is guessing. The ump has about a quarter of a second to make a decision watching a ball that is very small, moving at a very high rate of speed to make that decision. And they get it right sometimes, they get it wrong sometimes. All right. Now, I want to bring this back to CrossFit, where there's a lot of different movement patterns, standards that need to be hit. I mean, it could take you 10 minutes to read a workout description from CrossFit to say, what are the standards? And I even catch myself. I have to look at it. But I bring this back to, it's really hard to judge in this sport. And the numbers are enormous, and they're growing. And the CrossFit is very vocal about trying to grow the sport. And when you have humans that are subject to error, both on the judging side, athlete side, management side, it's really tough to tie together how to properly police standards among thousands and thousands and thousands of people. And the only fair way to run a worldwide competition is for people to be on the same playing field. And I don't feel it's that way right now.
I think that there are some differences in the parallels that you're comparing. Like, for example, in baseball or in tennis, there is a human that is evaluating whether a ball is a strike or a ball, or in tennis, whether it's in or out.
Right.
But there isn't any real debate about it.
What the actual standard is?
Right, the standard is. And in CrossFit, I think, and the other thing is that we don't have, like, both of those actually have computerized evaluation. So if in tennis, if the ball goes in and hits, you can actually look at what the computer says. Same with baseball.
Right.
But in CrossFit, we're self-enforcing most of these standards. And we're also not evaluating the judges, because you can actually evaluate judges in baseball,
right,
and say how accurate is their strike evaluation.
Yes. Yeah, that's actually a metric now that they're using.
So the other thing is that our sport, and Sean Woodland always says this, is unlike any other in the sense that we have so many people participating.
Right.
So how is it that we're going to standardize something is so broad and so big? It starts all the way down at the affiliate level.
Yep.
Garage level. Yep. Videos.
Literally garage.
All the way up to the games.
Yes.
So how are we going to fix this?
So that's where I'm really intrigued by this topic, because I remember I always tell our coaches here that I always want to know if there's a problem at the gym. And I say that to members too, like, let us know but bring me a solution. What is your solution? I don't want anyone to ever say, all right, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. You can say that only if you have a solution in your head, even if it's the one we use, if it's the one we don't use, if we all agree it's a stupid solution, whatever. I come up with stupid solutions all the time. I've been doing it for years. But I think a big part of just life in general is you need to be a problem solver. And that's why this topic intrigues me, that everyone can complain about standards. We have a guy that's making himself a YouTube sensation, Hiller. Maybe we'll have him on Sunday. He's just trying to be as famous as possible, but I do think his intentions are right. The sport is flawed, and there's a lot of correctable issues, but I don't want to hear complaints unless you have solutions. So I have a few solutions, and the way I broke this down is, like in any business, including Bison, you have to start at the top. All right. And so I'm going to talk about what CrossFit should be doing from my perspective. Then we'll talk about owners / coaches. I'm going to kind of group them together. I don't like separating owners and coaches. I'll tell you why later. Then we're going to go down to the athletes, and then we're going to go down to the judges. And we'll spend some time on each one of those people involved so that we can try to really come up with a decent solution here. So let's talk about CrossFit in general. This starts with, right now there is no CEO. Rosa's stepped down already. They're, currently interviewing. And I think them and the director of the games / the head judge, okay, we all know who those guys are, Berg and Bosman, right? They need to put a serious amount of time into two things. They need to probably put more resources, money, into finding ways to find judges for the Worldwide Open and quarterfinals, and I'll talk about that in a sec. But CrossFit headquarters, when Rosa became CEO, and what bothers me, he's already stepped down, and that's a subject for another time. He said that they wanted 500,000 people to sign up for the Worldwide CrossFit Open.
Yeah.
Where did that number come from? I don't know. This is where the outside world comes into CrossFit, tries to take over, and tries to put a business spin on it. And I've always felt that the Open it grew so organically. Like, I started in the second ever CrossFit Open, and I want to say there was like 100,000 people worldwide sign up, and they were approaching 500,000, and then the whole taking away regionals happened. There's been a lot of instability in CrossFit over my course of being involved in the games.
A lot of change.
Yeah, every year there's like these huge changes. They took away regionals and all this. And I think their strategy of expanding the CrossFit Open to basically you can do this anywhere, in a garage, in a Globo gym down the street. You don't need to have a judge that passed a judge's course. You can just do it. That was a move that I felt like I remember seeing that right away and kind of cringing and saying you're kind of losing the CrossFit Open. You're just making it the Open. So give me your thoughts on that real quick before I go into why it bothers me.
I understand the motivation behind that. It was one, the pandemic.
Yep.
And two, to make it more inclusive. Mm-hmm. So everything that they've done with the Open has been to try to make it more accessible and more open. And if you have to have certain standards or not standards, but mandate certain things, that just makes it harder,
right?
Especially worldwide. There's some people, you watch some of these videos overseas, like internationally, and they're just doing it like out on a blacktop somewhere, and they just drag their equipment out there.
Right. And so this is the problem, that this is where the sport starts. And this is like Sean Woodland says, this is unlike any other sport. Like, the NBA season does not start with a bunch of us playing backyard basketball.
Right.
Right. And the problem is there's a lot of people out there that the Open is their goal. We've had people in this gym that their goal is to make the top 10% so they can make the quarterfinals. Like, that's their year-long goal. It's a cool goal. It's awesome. It's attainable, right? But a huge part of this is you're trusting in every single person around the world doing it on a blacktop, in a gym, in a garage, in a CrossFit box, that they're going to be upholding standards. And this is where I don't really have the solution, because the numbers we're talking again, numbers that are approaching 500,000 people. How do you police 500,000 people? I saw a gym in Wayne, a CrossFit gym in Wayne, posting stories from that first workout with the wall walks this year. And you know how that line, we had to all come back and touch before it? None of them were doing it. So in my eyes, I'm like, all right, all those scores don't count, but they do count. All right, let's use her wife as an example. Susan, not that she was making her life about making top 10%, but for me as her coach, I was like, she can do it. She made huge gains. And I don't know if everyone understands, she missed that margin by a few people. It wasn't a few percent. So worldwide in her age group, she missed out on the top 10% by a few people, which really could have been 2 reps in a workout. 2 reps per workout, she gets in. And do you think that everyone that finished ahead of her in all these workouts followed standards to a T?
No, absolutely
not.
Shot.
No shot. So what does CrossFit have to do about that? That's going to be more on the affiliate level, what we'll talk about. But that's where I want to say that's where the problems are starting. It's starting in the open, and I think that CrossFit making it so big and so available and so accessible, because that's what our world has turned into. We have to accommodate everybody. It's not possible. And I think the way the CrossFit Open grew from like 2011 to 2016, like that's when it was spiking every single year. You had to like kind of earn the right to compete in the Open. And I do like that they made scale divisions. Remember, my first few Opens, there was no scaled version. It was, you can do it or you can't, see you later. And they fixed that. I think that if you're in a CrossFit gym, yes, you need to make everything accessible to every caliber athlete, every experience level of an athlete. But to say that we're going to put all these resources into trying to get people to do it at home in a Globo gym, I just don't agree with it.
Well, let me take devil's advocate, because the first thing is that there are scale divisions. So everyone who is not super capable yet, you don't worry so much about judging scaled. Mm-hmm. Not that you don't want to hold them to standard, but because it doesn't allow you a path to the next level. Yeah. So if you are the number one scaled person in the world and you cheated your way through it and you didn't hold to standards, ultimately, it doesn't really matter so much to everyone else.
Right. It doesn't have a negative impact on somebody else.
That's right.
Because there's no next stage.
The other thing is that 10% is a pretty broad metric to allow people to go on to the next stage.
Right.
So my argument would be, well, if you're that close, you have to make sure that you're well above that 10% line.
Right. Like aim for top 7%.
Yeah, or 8% in order to make it. And just assume that there's going to be a lot of gray area in there. Mm-hmm. The last thing is that CrossFit they are making a concerted effort to make the programming simpler to judge.
Yes.
So they had took out a lot of movements that were hard to hold standards to.
And they're making it more logistically friendly for gyms, which is a good move too.
Right. So I think they're aware that they don't want movements where it's really hard to judge or to keep standards to.
Right.
And for the most part, they're doing that. So I think the efforts that they are making from home office is helping. But you're right. At the end of the day, the thing is that we're very decentralized. Every affiliate is extremely independent.
Yeah.
There's no quality control.
Right.
No one from home office is coming over and saying, are you guys holding standards? Are you doing this? And nobody wants that.
Yeah.
So you're right. Every affiliate is responsible for maintaining the standards at their gym.
Yeah. And we'll touch on them. Like, I think I'm probably going to come down the hardest on that. I don't want to come across hard on CrossFit HQ. But I think that making this so wide openly accessible, it sends a message, an underlying message that, hey, it's not that big a deal. Just sign up, give us your $20, and we'll be good to go.
The other thing is they do have an online judges course.
Right.
And you've taken it.
Yes. I've taken it every year. It's annoying as hell. It's not hard, though, and you can cheat it. I'm not going to say I haven't. Like, hey, what'd you get for this answer? Okay. But so let's bring this now past the open, because I agree with Sam that making it more friendly for affiliates to properly run. Like, again, there was a rumor that the shuttle runs were going to be in 22.1 instead of the box jump overs. That would have been a disaster for a gym. And I remember the years they had, hey, guys, every athlete needs to have 2 50-pound dumbbells for guys, 35. That was a train wreck for us. And some gyms couldn't do it. Walking lunges, can't do it with all the space demands. I love how they're making that easier for affiliates. But I do think that it's got to still be, hey, you're a CrossFit gym if you want to do the open. You are a CrossFitter. Pandemic, let's take that year out, all right? Because a lot of people around the world were not allowed back in the gym. Let's go back to, I think the new CEO, the challenge of the new CEO is going to be blend old school CrossFit with new school, right? Like going new school and kind of overlooking all the CrossFit journals and everything that kind of organically grew this thing is a mistake. But I also think that the old school CrossFit was like the Wild Wild West, and it kind of just created this atmosphere of, it just got too big. I almost say this about a gym always. It takes one personality to grow a gym from 0 to 100 people, but it might not be the same person that brings it from 100 to 500. It's a completely different demand, right? And we've struggled with that here at Bison, where we've had to change our approach to things. And I think CrossFit was not doing that during the boom. They were not able to handle the growth. So we need someone at the top of CrossFit to kind of mesh these two worlds together to really keep this on the right track. Let's go to the quarterfinal stage. Okay, this is where all these videos on YouTube, Andrew Hiller, that's his name, right?
Yep.
If anyone wants to go go down a rabbit hole for a night or two, there are a lot of people in the quarterfinal stage either knowingly cheating or not knowingly cheating in that stage, and either having an impact on those that are trying to make the semifinal stage. And let's bring up the most basic one. If anyone did not know, this is what happened. In the quarterfinal, there was a workout with wall balls, shuttle runs, and rope climbs. And the shuttle run was 25 feet down, 25 feet back. That represented 1 rep. All right, so I had to run down to the gym, touch the floor, come back. That equaled 1 rep. And it was a ladder. I think at the top there was like 16 reps. It was a lot of running. And thousands of people around the world read it wrong. They read that every time they got to a turnaround, that was a rep. So basically they were doing half the runs. So you had, for example, this is what the leaderboard looked like. Joe Schmo from Missouri, all right, it was ranked 2,000th in every single workout, except for that one, he ranked first. So you kind of know there's a red flag there that his fitness level was exceeding the score was exceeding his fitness level. It wasn't a real score. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And so now you have thousands of those people doing that, or in some way screwing up the actual workout, not even knowingly cheating. They just read the workout wrong. So now let's say I did the workout, and let's say I crushed it and had the best score in the world of a legitimate score. But now I'm 2,000th in the world in that workout because all these guys did it wrong. And that ranking affects my ability to move on to the next level. That is a huge, huge issue that I don't think CrossFit solved.
There's no doubt. I think that CrossFit didn't address that shuttle run problem well, or at least transparently. Mm-hmm. They didn't really talk about it in a way that satisfied a lot of people.
Yeah.
What we're talking about now in the quarterfinals is moving from a recreational aspect to it to the sport or competitive aspect to it. And the first thing I do want to say is that in the 3 years ago, there wasn't a quarterfinals for the age group.
Right.
It was just top 200 would get to the age group.
Right.
And that was really difficult to do for each age group. And that made the Open way more sports specific than it is now.
Right.
So once you get into the quarterfinals, which we've already moved past, now you're talking about people who are on potentially a path to the games.
Right.
So if you get 10% of these top athletes, and now 30 of them, I think in general, will go on to the semifinals in each age group.
Yeah.
Now these standards and figuring out how to evaluate these people properly. I don't want to say cheating, but just not holding to standards.
Right.
Because cheating implies there was some intent.
Yeah.
And the problem is that, and kudos to Morning Chalk Up for finding out or sort of opening up or discovering this, because that allowed us to talk about it. Didn't give CrossFit home office a lot of time to sort of address this.
Right.
And I think they really didn't.
Yeah.
That's a problem.
And I think what you said earlier, this is the biggest issue. All right, because I know we can't just spend all this time on CrossFit HQ, what the responsibility is. They need to be more transparent with the athletes about what is the actual scoring process. So just for those that don't know, in the quarterfinals, for the open division, they gave the CrossFit a week to finalize the leaderboard. What does finalize the leaderboard mean? They have, I don't know how many, a staff of people that will watch videos of people that qualified for the next stage. And I know people personally that have gotten docked, penalized during that video review to the point where they were going to move on to semis, and now they're out. They got kicked out of semifinals because their videos they were not holding to standard in the video. So there are people watching the videos and penalizing to the point where they kick somebody out. So, but I think there needs to be a lot more transparency in terms of how big is that staff? How many people are watching videos? Is it the entire level 1 staff? I doubt it. Is it 10 people in an office? Is it Adrian Bosman in his basement? Like, who is watching them? And is there some sort of quality control behind it? Because, again, we're talking about umpires and tennis officials, right? Some of it is very subjective. And I want to know how many people are doing it and what is this video process? With the age group, that it was 2 weeks, right? Like, so many people... I'm like, oh, is it official yet? I'm like, I don't know. I don't even know if it's official. I still, to this day, I don't have an email, even though in the rule book, they said semifinal invites go out May 5th. On Instagram, it said on May 6th, the leaderboard is finalized. It's May 8th. I have no clarity right now whatsoever. It's just, I think I'm okay. I think I'm good, right? So that's where I think if you're going to be a professional sport and you're going to put all these resources into all these different things, if you say a date in your official rule book, or then you put a different date on social media, that kind of stuff has rubbed me the wrong way so many times over the years.
Yeah, I can't.
Transparency.
Yeah, I can't defend CrossFit Home Office about stuff like that. If they state a date, they either have to hold to the date or explain why they're not holding to that date.
And this is why I think there's a trickle down effect, right? If I'm below CrossFit headquarters, right? I am under them on the totem pole. If I see them kind of saying something, but kind of like whatever, like we'll just get to it when we can. That's what kind of made CrossFit go off the rails a little bit. There was no accountability. There was no transparency. There's a very poor communication. And in my opinion, it's not hard to like say, hey guys, what if they just came out and say, hey, we thought it was going to be May 5th, but the video process is a little overwhelming. We need till May 13th. I would respect it so much. But it almost seems like it's like a pride issue to say like, hey, we don't want to admit that we're doing something wrong.
Yeah, we talked about this. And the thing is CrossFit under Glassman was so opaque and they never told you anything about everything.
Never.
And they were capricious and they were arbitrary sometimes.
Yep.
And
that's the fear, because it's going to trickle down. Like, why, if you're an affiliate owner, why would you uphold standards if the people above you aren't really holding themselves to a standard?
I think they have made some efforts to...
They have.
Open up, and they had a recent press conference where they talked about some of these things. And I think the thing to understand is that I think these people in charge are really trying. They're not intentionally trying to mess this up.
I agree with that. Do you think the job's too big for the resources that they're using?
It's an opaque process. We don't, like you said, we don't know how many people are evaluating these, how they're doing it. All we know is, and I've seen older documentaries where they did have people looking at these, and there was some sort of system where they would kick up questionable videos up a level and then finally get to someone of buck stop here type of status where they decided whether or not and how to apply penalties and all that sort of stuff. And that's really complicated stuff.
It is.
But I will say the amount of resources that they have right now, I don't know.
Yeah.
The issue really is are the people in the quarterfinals being chosen properly to get to the semis? Because that's what they really focus on, and that's how they justify the shuttle run thing by saying, even if there are slips, even if there are some videos that get through that are not good, or there are standards that are not held,
big picture,
it's not changing the people that are going to the semis in any meaningful fashion.
Yeah, and I agree with that.
Do you?
I agree that you could just sum this entire conversation saying it's not that big a deal, but no one's really being impacted. But Morning Chalk-Up did do a story on someone that missed the semis by one spot. So again, technically, it's not a guy that's going to make the games. So if you're barely making semis, also, like, hey, huge accomplishment for especially the open division. You're not going to the games. So, but the guy did miss it by a couple points, and there's always going to be someone every year that misses it out by one spot. The Susan Rhee of semifinals, right? Where what if everyone did follow the standard? Maybe he does make it. Maybe this guy's been working it for his entire life, and that's like his main goal. Should we really say it's not a big deal?
No, I mean, we should not expect everyone's going to follow standards.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just not going to happen. No competitive sport has everyone following the rules all the time.
Yeah, no, and there's people that game the system all the time in every sport. The Houston Astros, right? I mean, that whole story with stealing signs, and I get that. And I know there's never going to be a utopia world of everyone is following rules.
Well, how should they change quarterfinal video submission and that whole evaluation process?
Good question, because I just told everyone, don't bring problems to the table if you don't have a solution. I have one idea, and again, it might be a dumb idea, but this is what you used to be able to do if you passed the online judges course, is you used to be allowed to watch anyone's video and give it thumbs up or thumbs down. Okay? I think, and this would be annoying for some, is if you want to advance to the next stage, or you want to have your score factor into the next stage, you have to submit a video of every single workout. That would be, and I'm thinking about our quarterfinalists. Like, imagine having 14 people try to videotape their zones and measurements. It would be annoying. But I think it's part of the responsibility of the sport. And if you want to advance to the sport stage, start videoing your workouts. And what you would do is, let's use Debbie Rourke, for example, made quarterfinals, second in a row. Awesome job by her. She completes all 5 workouts. She submits a video for all 5 workouts for the world to see. anyone from Zimbabwe to Alaska could watch her workout and give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down. And that does not dictate whether or not Deborah Rourke's videos are valid. But if there's, let's say, more than 20 thumbs down on her video, it puts a red flag on it for CrossFit to say, hey, we might need to watch this one. And then CrossFit sends to whatever judge they have, whether how big that staff is, to go watch her video that got all these thumbs downs and say, you know what? They're right. These are all bad reps. We're going to invalidate this video. We're going to major penalize this video. We're going to minor penalize this video. Or, oh, wait, this video is fine. I don't know why people gave it thumbs down. Like, we're going to give it a check mark. She's good to go. And this is called crowdsourcing, right? Where we're really trying to use a lot of people that may be credentialed, maybe not be credentialed to judge these videos. But I think it helps the sheer volume of videos that need to be watched. Because again, you can come in 20th place in a workout. And this has happened in every stage, right? I came in 20th place in the CrossFit total because I'm really strong, but I didn't do well in anything else. That video should still get watched. And with the amount of people that will sit home and watch videos, I think that would just immediately start to get the ball rolling in the right direction of, hey, if you will have shitty reps, if you are cheating, we're going to find out. And I think it also would push people towards start being more responsible. Like the fact that I video my workouts, I'm more nervous about that than I am the actual workout itself. And it makes you really kind of stay accountable to a lot of the stuff. What are your thoughts?
I don't like it for a couple of reasons. I mean, I understand why, and a lot of people, including you, have advocated crowdsourcing videos. And the issue is this. There is a popularity contest, right? We talked about this. So let's suppose there's an athlete that nobody likes for whatever reason, and he or she gets a bazillion downvotes, all right? So how about the ones where people do like and get a pass? So every year, the disliked athlete gets all of their videos scrutinized.
Right. Under like more of a microscope.
Right. And let's face it, for a lot of these reps, it's kind of close sometimes.
Absolutely.
And there might be some people like, hey, they're not locking out a full extension on their ring muscle ups when it's pretty close.
Yeah.
And the other thing is this, the technical issues of having to have how many videos does everyone have to put up? I mean,
yeah, they do say in the emails, if you're in quarters and you want to go to semis, everything's got to be videotaped. Like you literally have to send the video in with your score.
Okay, so now, and that alone is thousands and thousands of videos. Now you're increasing that number.
Yeah.
You're only going to increase the number of videos that CrossFit has to evaluate.
Right.
Because now all the videos are going to be up. A ton of downvotes are going to be up. And so... And they might not be reliable. You might not be able to use the downvotes in a reliable way to say this is good.
Yeah, but I wouldn't even say, hey, we're going to penalize Danny Spiegel because she had, 1,000 downvotes.
I thought you liked Danny Spiegel.
We talk about her way too much on this podcast. All right, let's say Noah Olson, right? Because I know some guy, I think it's just jealousy. Some guys just hate Noah Olson, right?
But I love Noah Olson.
Oh, he's awesome. But what if there's just a crew of people that don't like him and they just downvote him every time? This is the thing is, his videos should be getting watched because I think anyone that qualifies for a next stage, all the videos should be watched.
Well, okay, so CrossFit is figuring out how to, and they probably have watched every video of the 30 that did go.
Yes. So you're talking about the age group.
Age group.
So all videos from all 30 people that advance to the next group, which you're talking about like a lot of video.
Yeah.
Around the world, over 3,000 videos.
Right.
So, yes, did all those videos get watched, or maybe most of them, or the ones that really showed the true sign of fitness?
Right.
Right, the pistol one, the muscle up one, the overhead squat, right?
Right.
I think anyone that advances to the next stage should have all their videos watched. Yes, and I also think the top 100 scores from every workout should get watched.
Probably a significant percentage of them are already being watched.
Right, and I think I would love an objective measurement statement from CrossFit said, hey, if you do have a top 100 score or top 50, if it's too many top 50 in any of these workouts, we're watching it because it's not as easy to game that, right? I know a lot of athletes that had 3 top 50 scores that they didn't make it because their biggest weaknesses got exposed, right? In a different workout and they got out.
Okay, fair. I could see that. I mean, I don't think people could game that if CrossFit Home Office is announced.
Because you don't know what the top 50 score is, so you're just going to have to submit it. And I just think that's something I would love an objective measure. That's what I mean by I would love CrossFit to say, hey, we have an objective way of doing this. And this is another reason why I do think at some point CrossFit will get away from being in charge of masters competitions.
Because it's just too complicated.
It's too many.
Yeah.
And like let somebody else take it over. CrossFit should fully support them, maybe even send some money their way. Bob Jennings looking at you, right? That I do think that at some point someone else will take on the masters competing. And I'll tell you what, dude, there is going to be money there. Not necessarily from a prize, but every CrossFitter eventually becomes a masters.
That was such a ding moment for me. I think I agree with you 1,000% on this. Outsource it, and it's going to be someone who really cares about it a lot, like Bob Jennings.
And you can do very well.
And they're going to make money off of it, and they will handle the video submissions and evaluations.
Right.
And I've heard Bob talk about it. He hates it.
Oh, it's terrible.
Yeah.
And honestly, one of the reasons why it's terrible is people are terrible at videoing the workouts.
Right.
I even had one this year that I was like, oh, like I should have put the camera at this point. And I put a lot of thought into it. I know for a fact there's people that don't put any thought. They just like, they don't even know if they have enough storage on their phone for the for the videos, right? And that's the biggest thing. So but this is another thing I've observed that when I talked to Ash about this last night. We just got back from a masters only competition in Shrewsbury. We had 16 people compete. They did awesome. It almost seems like competitions are not as full as they used to be in like the younger people division. And I think part of the reason why is in 2008, 2019, they took away regionals. And I do think that someone really smart from here that knows CrossFit very well, it's like the F1 race. Mercedes makes no money on it, but they do it. It's for the brand. I think once CrossFit started getting away from like regionals and like making it a little bit sporty and making a little bit more about fitness, I think you can do both. You can make it sport and fitness. We do it here, I think, at a really like high level, and I think CrossFit could do that same thing on their own level, is you can blend the two together as long as you have responsible decision makers at the top. And I think the younger crowd, the 21-year-olds, the 22-year-olds, there's not as many going into CrossFit now as there were 10 years ago. Because you had that dream, like you watch it on ESPN, you're like, I want to do that someday. Little did I know I can't do that. I will never be able to do that. But it was a reason why, and I'm telling you what, there's a lot of people that dream about it when they start. They watch the games, like, you know what, maybe I can do that. And it's not out there anymore. It's not attainable anymore. There's no more regionals. There's less attention put to the sport. It's not on ESPN anymore, right?
We've talked about this. They do need a big, I don't know if you want to say TV contract, but the other thing is that kids don't watch TV anymore.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to figure out another way of reaching them. I guess with sports, I mean, sports are one of the few things that people still watch on live TV.
Yeah. I mean, 48 of the top 50 cable broadcasts this year were NFL.
Right.
It is, sports are watched.
Right.
But I do agree with you that it's someone smarter than me who's got to figure that out.
The other thing is I think CrossFit is making a concerted effort to reach to youth. I mean, look at the people they're highlighting. Mal O'Brien.
Right. The teens.
Yeah. Guy.
Yeah.
Like, these guys are all 18 to...
You're right about that.
And so I think they realize they need to put these superstars up there. How old is Justin Medeiros? He's so young.
Yeah.
So they're looking to youthify the sport. And I think they realize that they need that. And I think you're right. They're going to probably take the masters and make them...
their own thing.
And
I think we're okay with that. I mean, I think we are. I mean, I am. Like, I don't need to be a part of the CrossFit Games to feel that I'm pursuing something worthy, right? With competing in the sport. If anything, I think like things like Legends and Masters Fitness Collective, especially Legends, bias towards them, there's a huge opportunity there. And I think Bob's a smart business guy. Like, he knows it too, but there's got to be some support from CrossFit. And I think they might need to kind of just like let go of this a little bit. I think it's too big for them.
The other thing is that you don't want, I don't want to call it the stink of masters, but if you want to separate the brand identity to a certain degree, right?
Yeah, right.
So if CrossFit represents young and, like you said, fitness sport,
yeah,
then that's great. And you're right. I don't mind under what banner I'm really competing against or fitnessing in.
Right.
If it's a subset or a offshoot or...
yeah, like a sideshow.
Yeah, like...
which is,
like...
it's kind of what it is.
Right. Like one of our teams named Vintage CrossFit or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Like Masters Tour. I don't care. That would be helpful, probably.
Yeah. So those are our thoughts on what the CrossFit HQ is responsible for in relation to this problem, the scoring problem. I hope you guys got something out of that. But now I think it's going to become more realistic for people that are actually listening to this, because I don't know if Adrian Bosman's going to be listening to us, but the affiliates and owners. So the owners and the coaches, I don't like separating the two, because To me, the two are the same other than the 10%, which is basically the problems, right? Like the problems of a gym, the owner's got to take care of, right? But the culture, the upholding of standards, I think coaches and owners, they are in the same discussion. And yes, as an owner, I am a coach, I'm an athlete too, right? Where we are as an owner, I do feel like it's one of my jobs, and like I'm not the most popular guy because of it, where you do have to like talk about standards and make annoying statements and make people roll their eyes about things. But that's the way and it's all started when we didn't have coaches, just me, Chris, and Ash at the start, that we coached the first classes for pretty much the first year. And I remember, and Ash has always been good about this, she still is, and like it was funny, she had a reputation early on, but she still kind of does, where she will no rep this newcomer on wall balls, right? And I don't think we do it to be a jerk, but it's when you start something from scratch, the way Bison started from scratch, how you set that tone in that first 6 months, 9 months in a year, it carries over for a very long time. And that was where I think we cut off the separation between owner and coach, because now we have a staff of 12 coaches. And all of them have different ways of enforcing standards. We're not walking around the gym no-repping people. But like Sam, you recently just had a push-up air squat workout. And those are the worst days to coach, because it's the simplest standard in the world. And people don't do it. And we struggle with this. We're nice guys. We want people to come here and get their escape and have a good time and exercise and be healthy. Whether they squat the extra 2 inches, big picture, not a huge deal. But it does matter. So let's go into, without us turning into venting about people not doing stuff right, let's talk about the responsibility. Let's just stick with us coaches now, about enforcing standards, what to do, what not to do. What are your thoughts?
You're right. We're doing Murph prep right now. And so there are a lot of workouts that I'm seeing with push-ups and air squats. And it's not so much the new person. It's the people that have been here for 4, 5, 6 years, and they're not fully extending up on the air squat, and they're not fully getting below parallel on when they come down.
And this will be we're going to talk about the athletes next too.
Same with push-ups. And the problem is this: I can't put it on the athletes because it's our responsibility as coaches. And so the athletes failing is my failing.
Right.
And I'm letting them fail in every class. And I don't know what to do, because it's 6 a.m. and I'm watching somebody do these air squats, and I've known this guy for 4 years.
Right.
And he's doing them the same. And now I'm suddenly going to start enforcing standards and be like, hey, dude, just stand all the way up and all the way down.
Right.
And maybe I will. Maybe at some point I'm just going to lose it and just be like standard Nazi and say, hey, guys, like
that doesn't count. Stop.
And I say this before class, and I'll usually throw the previous class under the bus, and I'll say, listen, these guys never follow standards. You guys should follow standards.
Yeah.
And sometimes that helps. Sometimes, and a lot of times it makes no difference whatsoever.
Right.
And I honestly don't know.
It's okay to say it.
How to fix that.
No, Sam, I've said this before. I think one of the truest signs of humility is to say, I don't know. A lot of people don't like to say that because it's like their pride can't handle it. Like, I don't know. Dude, this is my career for almost a decade now. Like, I don't know either. I do know this, though. I do my best for it. And you've taken a lot of my classes, and I talk about standards to this day, right? I try different ways, but I also know the coach-athlete relationship, it's 50-50. I can give 100% of my effort to this part of coaching. There's other parts to coaching too, right? And this is just one component of coaching, is talking about standards. So there's so many things you got to do in a class that, especially in a gym like this, where classes are big, we're tight on time, can be tight on space sometimes, we can't put all of our resources, thought, effort, energy into that, just a standard. But I will give everything I have to that one component, right? Like whatever energy and time I put into standards, it's always going to have all like my attention for that respective part of it.
I just had a thought, and this is probably a jerk move, but what I want to do for one class is when we have air squats or something, is you get a number 1 to 10 next to your name on the whiteboard, quality of your air squat.
I made an Instagram post about this years ago. If your score was how well you moved, not your time, would you move different?
I'm going to give a time, and then I'm going to give a 1 to 10 rating for each athlete. And if you get below like an 8, like then like I don't care. Like it's going to be a jerk. It's very jerky.
No, it's a jerk move.
Yeah, and I don't want to do that. But I think for fun, just one day, I'm going to do that, and I just want to see how many people improve their quality of movement when it's written up on the whiteboard.
So that's an outside the box idea, right? I'm sure several coaches have thought about something like that, right? But this is what I want to challenge coaches to do. Don't just talk about it the same way all the time, but try different ways to tell people. I remember I just recently made an Instagram post about this on our Bison Instagram. I've said this in classes before, and I remember Ryan Radcliffe sent me a text after. He goes, "Yo, you good?" And I was like, if we all went out and ran a mile for time, that was today's WOD, run a mile for time. You were crushing it. You ran 800 meters. All right, the whole class ran 800 meters. You ran half the mile. You have the second half to go. Everyone else stopped at 3 minutes. At the 800-meter mark, they stopped. You ran the full mile. It took you 6 minutes. You're proud. That's a pretty fast mile. Everyone else said they did it in 3 minutes. And you're like, wait a second. You guys didn't even run the mile. What would you think? Even if you don't care about scores, right? Like, I like people that don't care about scores because I think they're here for fitness, right? And it's not ego that comes in. But how would you feel if that was you? You ran a mile, everyone else ran 800 meters, and everyone gives the time as if they ran a mile. It would bother you. If you don't do movements to standard because you're tired, that's you. You're that person that stopped halfway through. And I said this in a class one time, and everyone's kind of looking at me like, I think Dave's starting to lose it.
That's why I feel like when I talk about this, I do seem a little deranged every time.
Right. But like the other day, we had an air squat workout, one of our Murph prep workouts. I had everyone bring out a wall ball. I said, all right, everyone squat to the wall ball in the warm-up. I didn't make people do it in the workout. And that does wake up the thought to some people that's like, all right, that is the bottom of my squat. And guess what? You just proved you can do it. So you can't tell me your knees hurt and that's why you don't squat. You just did it, right? And this is where I try to, as a coach, you talk about it, you give examples, you tell a story, you make a little statement on social media. There's different things you should be trying to do to enforce standards, not because you're the no-rep police, right? Some coaches, I actually think more athletes think coaches do that. And it's like, I think the athletes should just shut up when it comes to that. If the coach is telling you how to do something correctly, listen. That's it. Keep the mouth shut. Just listen. Don't roll the eyes. Just listen. And I think that's a huge part of coaching. And this comes more with the experienced coach is you have to find different ways to teach people. Now, this story that I tell about the mile and the half mile, it might only register to 1 out of 30 people in the class, but hey, if it did its job. If the wall ball squatting helped one person in the class understand, hey, that's where the bottom of my squat is, it worked.
There was a class we had recently. I didn't write scaled or RX or anything because it just pissed me off that so many people didn't really keep the standard. And I didn't want someone to get a really good score that thought they did it to RX and they didn't. I was just like, I'm not writing anything down for anybody.
I know.
And so that's the other thing is that for me personally, this resonates because I'm pretty good at burpees. But the other issue is that sometimes when I'm doing my burpees, I don't always just touch my chest all the way down.
Right, yeah.
And who's really good at picking up on that is Adam Ramsden. So it's like he's judged me before and he's like, get that chest down. And we just did a burpee workout.
Right.
And I thought I crushed it.
Yeah.
And then I saw the Instagram story video and I was looking and I was like, I think I'm touching my chest.
Yeah.
Like maybe I'm close.
No, it's close.
And I feel like,
but the thing is, Sam,
that makes me feel like crap because I was like, all right, you know what? I don't really care how well I do on a workout. I've got to really make sure there's no doubt that I'm touching my chest down there, because if I say I'm good at burpees and I'm going really fast at burpees and I'm not keeping the standard, then it totally invalidates everything that I'm doing. Yeah.
And that also, like that statement right there, it gives you some empathy for an athlete, right? Because I do believe that not all athletes know that they're not moving to standard. I think in most cases they don't know. Like I remember Ryan Sorfine came up to me after the latest Murph prep workout and he goes, dude, do you think these people know they're not even halfway squatting? And I was like, honestly, I think some of them don't know, because I do think body awareness and coordination and accuracy.
Oh yeah, I feel like I am, but
you don't know. You just don't I'm very in tune with my body and movements and standards. I've been doing this a long time, and there's still times I don't know. But here's one thing. Here's another idea for a coach. I'll wrap this up because you brought up the video. Is videoing helps.
Yeah.
And I remember back at the old space, this is probably 2015, where we did a push-up workout and I videotaped 50 people doing push-ups. and I sent it to this is before like Instagram story times, right? Where I sent them a text message with the video of them doing a push-up. And I would say 3/4 of them texted back like, holy cow, I did not know that's what I was doing. And whether that's true or not, I don't know. Like that's not for me to decide. But when you show someone that, hey, here's your video and I'm seeing this, just so you're not getting away with it. I think that was a move as a coach. That's when I started to like kind of turn the corner as a coach. It's like, I don't need to just point the finger and yell at you every single time. You make your decision. Here's your push-up. And I'll give Nicole DiCarlo a shout out where she is very vocal about the fact that she struggles with push-ups, but she never does. She never shorts it. She doesn't cheat. She just struggles, and she works her ass off on them. And I give that a lot of respect because I think a lot of people, when they get to the struggle point, they're like, you know what? It burns, so I'll just keep going. And I think that's a video helps a lot. And whether I'm putting on Instagram, and whether it's good for you or bad for you. Sometimes you see videos of yourself on Instagram or your own videos, because I see your own workouts. I'm like, all right, man, look good. Like I'm moving well. Like that, the standards are there. And you weren't always like that. Like you always used to struggle on wall balls, like squatting, because you were just so focused on throwing and catching. And I get it. Trust me, I get it. The competition yesterday at Shrewsbury, I think half the people were not squatting on wall balls. I would say over half.
At least.
I would say over half, yeah. And do I think they're trying to cheat? No. I don't want to say people are just like malicious or lazy. In some situations, they just don't know, and a video truly helps.
This is the competitive aspect of it. I was just thinking of David Hippensteel, and he really got crucified for his movement on his videos, and he withdrew from competition. And I met him briefly at the games last year, and he's and everything that I know of him, he's truly a sincere, awesome, top quality guy.
Yep.
And the issue is that for all of us, when it means so much to us, we start thinking in our heads that standards are not quite as important as they really should be.
Right.
And whether it's the best score on the whiteboard for that day, or if you're competing against someone else, like your friend, or you just feel like I've always gotten this number of whatever on this workout, and so why should I have to change things?
Right.
I think as coaches, we're pretty good at teaching newbies how to move. Mm-hmm. I'm wrestling with the established athlete who's been around for a really long time.
That is tough. And that's where I think it's really 50-50.
Right. And it's really about our self-esteem. It's about our ego. It's about us and as people. And I really want to try to not enforce, but I would want people to know, listen, if someone new came into the gym and looked at the class, they would say, that guy moves great.
Right.
And I'm thinking of different ways as a coach to try to get people to take pride in their quality of movement,
right,
and not necessarily their time or their score on it.
I think one of the greatest compliments I ever heard, we heard it yesterday a couple times at the competition. It's like, man, like these athletes in this gym also, they all move well, right? And do all of them move well? Honestly, no, they don't. But when you hear someone from the outside, like that should be something, not that we should be walking around saying, I hope these people are impressed by me. But that is, now we'll kind of transition this into the athlete. Like Sam said earlier with his evaluation of how quality your movement is next to your score on the whiteboard, and what people look at you and say at a competition, and then and how this can transform to what your approach is at a gym is, if someone new came in and watched you move, would they say you move well? And if the answer is no, it's okay. We'll help you out, but slow it down a notch. Take the weights down. So this is where the athlete comes in. This is one of the old school CrossFit Journal articles that I think people should read more than they do, right? Whether you're in coaching or not. I think if you're into CrossFit, you should be reading the old CrossFit Journal articles. Quality movement first, consistency second, intensity third. So this is basically the movement progression of everything you do in CrossFit, all right? Including the chicken wing muscle up. Do understand the mechanics, progress your way there. And if you want it to take you a year, but it takes you 3 years, that's fine, right? This is your fitness program for life, hopefully, right? So stop putting a timeline on it and say, I'm really going to start doing this well. That's how I'm going to start. Let's keep the muscle up out of it. Let's go air squat. I'm going to air squat really well because I want to eventually overhead squat snatch, back squat, air squat really well. Now do it consistently. So that means do it in workouts. And your first rep looks like your last rep as often as possible, right? No one's ever going to be perfect. But again, What is your intention? Just wrote that on the weekly programming for the gym. Wednesday's workout is very like, what's your intention today? Every time you come in here, there should be an intention, and most of it should be quality movement based for the sake of your own health, not for your score. If you have that intention of, I want to air squat perfectly. Okay, in today's workout, Thursday, we have air squats in a workout. Every single one of them is going to be perfect. Even if I have to slow down a notch, they're going to be perfect. Okay, so you've done that for a couple of years, right? You can put whatever timeline on you want on that. Now the intensity comes. Now the loads come. Now how fast can you go? That's the way to progress in CrossFit. And I think some people that have been doing this for 4, 5, 6, 7 years, they might have skipped that whole consistency stage. They learned how to do it, but then they kind of spent maybe a week or two on the consistency stage, and now they're doing as many reps as possible to failure with the heavy loads.
I have issues with OPEX's philosophy, but this is a good part of OPEX's philosophy is making sure you're consistent before you move on to intensity.
Yeah, and I think that's where, OPEX is very one-on-one coaching, and this is where the one-on-one coach helps. And sometimes you're a little biased towards, I would say biased for or against yourself. I think there's some athletes here in our gym, like they're ready to up it a little bit, but they just don't know. And a coach can come in and go, I think you can push some more weight here. Right? I'm thinking about a few people in the gym right now that started within the past year that I don't think they're completely aware that they're ready to go up a notch with the weights, the intensity, the speed, if that's what their goal is. I also think there's more people than that skip that stage, and they're the ones that we get frustrated with on push-up days and air squat days. And we're talking about like the simple shit. Like we're not even talking about the cleans and the overhead squats and the squat cleans, right? Where, that person's doing that weight, I'm going to do it now too. And I say this on every spectrum of every athlete, like the beginner and the quarterfinalists. Like there are some people that at the high level, they get all this praise or like, you made top 10%, blah, blah, blah. They move like shit when they get tired. And it's dangerous, but it's also, you should understand it's a bad look for the gym. That if you're on Instagram and you can't do the simple things correctly while you're moving at a high rate of speed, that has to trickle down. And I don't think athletes take enough responsibility that if you do this, right, if your movement quality gets so bad when you get tired or a certain intensity level, the people that are starting, they're looking you, they're watching you, and they're going to say, hey, it's fine. If they're doing it, like that's going to be my end goal.
I know you took a lot of pride yesterday in people coming up to you and saying how well these athletes moved,
right?
Whether it was deserved or not. Like,
yeah.
Hey, Elena, did you teach Elena how to do that?
Yep, I taught her how to do her toes bar.
But you're right. As a coach, I want to take pride in my athletes. No matter what class I'm teaching, I want to be able to look at them and say, these guys are moving well. I'm helping them in whatever small way I can to get better and to move well.
Yeah.
And that's certainly my goal. And as an athlete, I also want, like you said, when I first started, when I started breaking down, I broke down bad.
Right.
Really bad.
Right.
And now I can tell when I'm starting to break down bad, and I will either stop or I will change it, or I've also gotten better at moving better to failure.
You've also been very coachable though. Like from day one, you really have been. You've never had like an ego issue. And if you did, I never knew about it. Right. And I think that's a trait. If you want to use yourself as an example, I would talk about that before anything else. You've just been coachable.
Thanks. I would say the thing I do realize is that like maybe the last 5% of a workout, if you're, but even when you watch games athletes, they don't really break down when they fail. Their form doesn't really go. They just can't do it.
Yeah.
And a good place to watch that is actually in regional level, because you're seeing a range of athletes, and you can see some athletes who are really high caliber and they break down badly,
right? And
then some that break down well, and that's actually something that an experienced athlete can actually take from that is learn how to break down well.
Yep. And so the last stage now of who I think this falls on are the judges. And this is a big one. I think this is overlooked. And this is the tricky part about judging. Judging, from everyone I've seen, I don't think I've ever seen a judge be paid. So if anything, the judges are paying to take this stupid course online. Should I say stupid? This course online. And then they're volunteering. And we just had a lot of people. We gave them a shout out on our quarterfinal recap.
Absolutely.
We had over 20 people pay $10, spend about 45 minutes taking a pretty frustrating test, but again, not that bad. But then they volunteered hours and hours on a weekend to come judge us. And so you want to say thank you to them, and I am overly thankful to them. We don't get to do this without judges, right? And I liked yesterday at the competition, the DJ at the end, he said, hey, we don't get to do this without the volunteers and the judges. It's so true. But that said, there's responsibility. If you're going to put that judge shirt on, you have a responsibility. It doesn't end with the fact that you're doing us a favor. Like, there's a real responsibility with the judges. And I want to use Susan as an example again, right? There were judges that did not judge the wall walk to standard in the open. And because of that, people that were right on the brink of making that top 10% did not make it and that is the judge's fault. Because I'll tell you what, when you're judging, if you just give one no rep, whether it's real or not, just to kind of like, hey, I'm watching. Adam Ramsden wrote no rep to me a couple times in that pistol workout for my other foot, like literally grazing the ground. I think he might be one of maybe 2 or 3 judges that would actually no rep me for that.
He has the most integrity and balls, probably.
Yeah. Like Alan Grimberg, when he judged me on the handstand push-up, literally your pinky is not allowed to touch the piece of tape that's on the handstand push-up line. I think my fingernail was grazing over it, and he goes, yo, like, no rep, like, gotta move that hand. I love that in a judge. I think judges need to know that. A real athlete that has some integrity loves that they'll get a no rep, because it makes me feel like my score is legitimate. It really does.
It's hard to judge you for a couple of reasons. One is you move really fast.
Right.
2, it's like in baseball where you have a video, you always video all your workouts.
Right.
So if I no repped you and it was a real rep,
yeah,
I would feel awful.
Right.
But then even worse is if you no repped and I didn't no rep you,
yeah,
I'd feel even shittier, because then your video would show it and you'd have to upload it, and then you'd have to take the hit on it.
Yeah, you might get like the penalty. I'll tell you what, there's a kid, his name's Mike from Ireland. He made semifinals in my age group, 30th place so 30, that's the 30 out of, 3,000 people make the next stage. He came in 30th, and his overhead squats on the video, he squatted to depth every time. Movement looked good. The one thing he didn't do is kind of just bring his hips a little forward. He didn't extend the hips at the top of the squat. A lot of people do that, right? And the judge is just counting them. And this is the issue. If the judge no repped him once or twice in that workout, like, yo, you got to stand up, his score probably would have been, 10 seconds slower overall.
Because he would have fixed it.
Yeah, he would have fixed it. And the amount of time it takes you to extend the hips at the top is a 1/10 of a second.
Right.
So his overall time would have not been that bad. But because CrossFit saw all those reps that were not good, they penalized him by over 2 minutes. And because of that, he's out. He's on the outside looking in. He almost said on his Instagram, he's like, I almost quit. Like, I just don't want to do this anymore. And because you put so much into it. And that, in my opinion, I don't know the judge. That's the judge's fault.
That was the judge's responsibility.
And that's what we mean by this. Like, the judge really, especially if you're trying to judge someone that's trying to qualify for the next stage, you avoiding a no rep because, like, it's my buddy, like, it's all right. Now that their video gets watched, their penalty is now greater than it would have been if you just no repped a couple reps. And that's, like, you could say that's the judge's fault.
In the open, though, most of the stakes are not as high.
Yep. No, I know. It's not as high. And, like, I saw, you don't always have to bring up, like, my example with Susan, but I just think I want to tie those two subjects together, that it is the judge's responsibility.
Yeah.
And it's you have to turn off the friend switch. And I tell athletes all the time that if you ever yell at a judge here, like, you will see a side of me you have not seen. I will come at you so hard that if you yell at a judge, right, for no repping you. And I think judges here are still afraid with certain personalities in the gym to no rep them. And if that is you, I'm not going to come down on you, but don't judge.
It's funny because I think at our gym, we know the people who are the easy judgers and who are the strict judgers. And I know athletes, and they will say, oh, I hope I get so-and-so instead of so-and-so.
Well, this is why we don't let people pick their judge, or we try not to. Some people try to still finagle around it.
Right. And I feel like we need to talk a little bit more about that at our gym.
Yeah.
And
so this is where the coach and owners come back into play
and raise that level of responsibility for the judges. And we've been trying to do that, but I think for the next coming year, I think we're going to be able to improve that quality of judging a little bit more.
Especially if, right, I think we had 15 athletes advance to the next stage. Like, it will not surprise me just seeing the general tone in our gym right now that we have 25 next year. It won't surprise me.
That would be awesome if we did that.
And if we do, that means more judges are going to be needed. And like CrossFit, we just criticized CrossFit for, as it got bigger, the quality went down. That's going to be on us, on me especially, to if this thing's going to get bigger, we have to make sure the quality does not lose out. So that is on my shoulders. And if that's on if you're a judge or you want to judge someday and be a huge part of what we do here, again, I'd say that they're probably more important than the athletes. No offense, athletes. That be prepared for that and make sure that you know what you're getting into. You're not only doing a favor.
The problem also is as an athlete, if you're shooting for quarters, you have to move well all year. It can't be like you let yourself go with standards a little bit here and there and then suddenly clean it up for the open. Like, I was just thinking about myself and my movements, and I was like, if I really want to make sure I'm moving well, I have to move well in every workout.
Practice now.
Yeah, because if I don't work to standards every time, I'm gonna not remember how to do it really, really, really properly when I need to.
Great point. We should have said that when we were talking about the athletes. And to piggyback on that, because we're gonna wrap this up soon. The athlete, yes, practice it all year, but when a coach talks about standards, tune in. Because we might be talking to you directly. Just like if you're in the class, man, this is like the 8th time David said this in one of my classes, we might be talking to you. So just really tune in. So just to wrap it up, there's so many stages to this problem. There's so many levels to this problem, but there's also different levels that have different responsibilities. And we hope that we gave you proper solutions. No matter what spectrum you're on in regard to this issue, I do strongly believe, I'm glass half full with a lot of things in life. I do think this can be solved. I don't think it's all going to be solved in 1 year. I do think people are things are trending in the right direction. Part of it, I'll be honest with you, is this guy Hiller. I think people are afraid to send in videos now, and that they'll think twice about locking out their elbows, standing all the way up to extension on squats and pistols, right? So I think you start making some people nervous. It might change some things, but just know that if you're listening to this, you have a role in this issue being fixed, especially if you're in the sport. So anything else, Sam?
No, that was awesome.
All right, cool. Thanks, guys, for listening. We'll see you next week. Thank you, everybody, for taking the time out of your day to listen to the Herd Fit podcast. Be on the lookout for next week's episode.